The Building Brands podcast is dedicated to exploring the journeys of industry leaders who have successfully built a brand. Join me, Robert Royer, president of Building Brands Marketing, and an entrepreneur who has successfully scaled multiple brands as we dive deep into the strategies, challenges, and insights that have shaped the success of industry leaders and provide you with the resources you need to do the same. Building Brands Marketing is a full-service marketing agency specializing in crafting customized marketing strategies for service-based businesses with the creative powerhouse to drive real results. Welcome to the Building Brands Podcast. Welcome to the Legal Leader series of the Building Brands Podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Neil Bhartia, founding partner and attorney with Accident Pros LLP. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. Especially so close to the holidays. So you've been practicing law for nearly 2 decades, and you're the founding partner of Accident Pros LLP. So you really built it from the ground up. So just, walk us backwards. What inspired you to make that shift from running a solo practice just yourself to growing it to a full-scale firm where it's at today, Neil?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. I was just talking to my partner about this today because we're launching a big campaign, and we're kind of like discussing how we went from where we each were solos to what we are now. And I just got to a point in my career where I just felt like I wanted something different in my life. I felt like I was always getting burned out. I was, as an empath, which I discovered a little bit late in life, I was always very wound up over just simple calls and simple things happening. And I was tired of bearing the burden of a firm and everybody's problems just on my shoulders. Now, having said that, I did have a couple of people working for me underneath me. But when you're a solo practitioner, even if you have other people working for you, you're still the say all and be all. So if any little thing happens, it's still on your shoulders. So you could never just go travel without having to check emails. The last thing you want is something like a bar complaint. So you're always on. And I got to a point where I thought I either just have to quit law altogether, because the energy involved with it was just becoming very toxic. Or I do the opposite and I try to blow something up much bigger than just me and have partners and bigger staff where I can be more of a decision maker instead of having to shoulder, 50 paper cuts a day. And to be honest, I hope this doesn't sound egotistical, but there's obviously ego involved in all of this. I saw a lot of other people who I would meet that were just killing it in the personal injury field, that everybody would tell me, and I would notice that I didn't think they had 1/20th the skill set that I did. I know that sounds terrible, but I thought if they could do that, what am I doing all this small stuff? So I thought this is my foray into trying to prove something for myself. So that was the genesis of, let me start Accident Pros LLP to see if I can blow it up into one of these big things, because if they can do it, why can't I? So that's what this experiment originally started as.
That's awesome. And I mean, it's confidence, right? Like, confidence is part of it. So I don't see any knock or negative in that. Neil, if you can, give us a little sneak peek into, you said you were talking with your partner today and working on a big campaign. Give us a little sneak peek into, what's in the works here.
Oh yeah. Well, it actually went out today. So, I never thought I would do this, but I was trying to not be one of those billboard lawyers. But today, we had a whole series of buses go out with what they call King Kong ads, which are the ones that take up the entire side of the bus. So we went through the artwork earlier this month, and they just went live today on the buses. So my advertising guy just sent me photographs of the buses. So this is like our trial run, and then we'll start amping it up.
Oh, very neat. That's what I was about to ask. His first time at a run with a tactic like that. Have you done any billboards at all before, or any other outside of home besides this?
No, we haven't. I mean, we had a few television commercials. However, I didn't really feel like they yielded much in terms of responses. Although when you're doing advertising in our field, people, it's not an optional service usually. People's need for a personal injury attorney has to coincide with an actual accident. So what you're really trying to do is get people to remember you, so that when they do need one and they see you on the internet, they're like, oh, I remember these guys. So we've done some TV ads for a little while, but we pulled those after maybe a year. And then I just have been really growing the firm based on hard work and word of mouth and referrals and things like that. And we've done super well just with that. So I also I wasn't sure if I wanted to go down that road of the big advertising, because I also wasn't sure if I wanted just anybody off the street. And I didn't want to have the cheesiness that can sometimes be associated with these billboard attorneys.
Oh, no doubt. For our listeners and viewers, Neil's firm is in the Orange County area. They're in several different pockets of the Orange County area, which is obviously an incredibly competitive market in PI. So hats off to you. It takes a lot of strategy and resilience to build a firm in that area, and you're doing well. Talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had opening up in such a competitive market like that, both geographically and niche-wise of law.
Sure. Yeah. And actually, if I may add, we're actually more targeted up in Northern California. So we have an office in Orange County,
Okay.
LA, the LA area, like Woodland Hills, and then up north in Placer County and Sacramento. So we're basically statewide, but most of our advertising campaign
Impressive.
is up north, although I'm down here. So to that end, I guess you're asking about challenges.
Yeah, major challenges in kind of getting the firm off the ground from a
Sure.
marketing standpoint.
Being on a shoestring budget, I'm not the type of guy to go in debt. And so, the question is, you're up against these big firms, who are literally spending $1 million a month on Google AdWords, millions of dollars on these billboards. Some of these billboards on the main freeways are, 20, 30, $50,000 a month sometimes. And the question is, how do you capture some of that share without any of those resources? So there was that component. And the other hard component was human resources, just getting the right people to work. This project started right after we started this about a year after COVID. And so now the whole model was everybody was working from home. And so it was difficult to navigate. How do you get the right staff that's actually going to put in the work, working from home without being in an office environment? So I think the two hardest parts were trying to get market share with no budget. And secondly, getting the right people to work for you, and also building the firm with people as you are building revenue, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're paying somebody a lot of money as an employee, but the cases aren't settling and you're not bringing enough business. So you kind of get caught in this limbo of shouldering, a lot of things like you're solo. So for a while, I felt like a solo again, just with more cases, until you kind of just get enough settlements and you get to a point where, okay, now we can start hiring, now we can start scaling up. So
Yeah, it's a tricky thing about PI. I'm assuming the majority of your cases are contingency, right, Neil?
all of them are, yeah.
Yeah, so that creates some challenges in the beginning days. That can be a little brutal. Congrats. So I know I assume you've obviously used a lot of grassroots efforts, especially in the beginning days to get the firm off the ground. Lots of old school, networking opportunities. What worked best in the initial days of those grassroots efforts of trying to establish new relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. Reaching out to my alumni network at my law school, just letting them, I'm pretty well known with them. So, because I always kept in touch with my alumni base. So just letting them all know, hey, I'm doing personal injury. If you ever have cases, think of me. So that fueled a few cases at the beginning. Reaching out to my Rolodex of all my old clients at my previous law firm and just saying, hey, I just to let you know, I'm folding into this bigger law firm so we can do bigger things. So keep us in mind, because I've always kept really good relationships with my previous clients. So as such, those are the basics. It was just like getting the word of mouth out. And that's one of the benefits of keeping good relationships and good rapport with people, because I've noticed people don't necessarily, well, I guess to a degree they hire law firms once they're out there and, on billboards or whatever, but people are really hiring lawyers because they're dealing with the lawyer and they're dealing with your name, and it's your reputation that matters. So I built it up just, diverting cases that were coming in through my original law firm to the new one. And as I said, through just reaching into my Rolodex and also my alumni network at my law school.
What was law school did you graduate from again, Neil?
For law school, I went to Chapman University, which is in Orange County.
Very cool. Yeah, that's the best way to start. Reach from those existing relationships, those existing contacts, nurture those. Leverage those, not in a bad way, but in a personal and authentic way. and I know you've done a great job in doing so. Now, I know that you've kind of now put the foot on the gas a little bit, like you alluded to the guerrilla billboards and potential other tactics that the firm has dabbled in, maybe some Google ads or social ads. Could you elaborate a little bit on kind of this next stage of marketing of what the firm's been focused on for new lead generation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were treading water for the longest time, just trying to build up the finances and build up the right staff because you don't want to scale up and then not be able to process the cases because that'll just
Hmm.
result in unhappy clients. And then you're not using clients to catapult off of them to get future referrals. So it was after we got through all the difficult part of getting the right staff, like we went through periods where we were hiring people that we had to train. That didn't go well. People's work ethic isn't what it maybe used to be pre-COVID. Like I said, working from home. So now that we have the
Yeah,
staff we need, it was like, okay, we got the money, we got the staff now. It's time to just like reinvest in terms of now getting the name out and becoming more of a household name. So we felt comfortable enough to now, okay, we've always been doing a little bit of social media, although that doesn't bring much in. But now it's just time
yeah.
to it's at that point where it's like, well, if those guys could do all those huge things, why can't we? So now we're at that point of like, let's do it. Let's do the bus ads. Maybe we will do billboards, although it's a very saturated area right
Yeah.
now. But now we'll do the bigger. We'll maybe even ramp up the TV ads and whatnot once again. So now it was time. It was time. Like I didn't feel comfortable doing it before because I didn't want to be. I was already overwhelmed to begin with. I just didn't want to be so overwhelmed because the whole purpose of this was to make my life better, not to relive, the hells of being a solo practitioner. So I just wanted to be able, I could be sure I could handle it when it came. So that's why we're here.
Absolutely. Have you ever considered any like social forum or social bookmarking platforms like Reddit advertising or Quora or anything like that?
I've thought of it. I started replying and doing a little bit on Quora, but the other
Hmm.
platforms that you're discussing, I apologize if you hear that banging.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So I have thought of it and I'd like to get back into that. I've just been stretched so thin, but yeah, I've definitely, it's something I want to jump back into. I'd started dabbling and then I just pulled back because I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah, yeah. When I'm finding that these social bookmarking platforms like Reddit specifically are becoming more and more critical because they're feeding a lot into LLM models. And for so many of the discovery searches happening through ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity now, there's such an added importance of having being uh, able to be found by LLMs. And so like Reddit's one that jumps out to me that really the industry is putting a heavier prevalence on, as well as some of these other um, other citation platforms like Google. Of being sure that those are continually updated because all of those are local signals which feed LLM models. So that's definitely something going into 2026 that I know is going to be a major area of opportunity for most law firms is going to be tapping into some of these social platforms more that speak to language learning models like ChatGPT, and especially in larger major metro markets where the search landscape seems to be adapting much more rapidly than smaller rural towns. Uh, Neil, is there anything else right now in terms of marketing in the law firm space that you feel like is a hot topic or trend that's worth knowing about?
Definitely AI. You hear about that every day, but the question is, what's AI going to do, not just to the legal industry, but the personal injury industry? I hear people
Hmm.
thinking, when I say people, I'm referring to other attorneys, they're wondering, will the whole personal injury model die in 5 or 10 years? Because maybe people will just try to do their own cases using, AI. I literally have
Yeah,
clients emailing me, and I know it's an AI email that they've crafted.
yeah,
It can be a bit frustrating because they're getting, sometimes absurd results from ChatGPT. Like, for example, they'll have a little bump on their car and they're not injured, and they'll say, "Well, shouldn't my case, according to ChatGPT, my case should be worth $30,000 because that's the average." And I'm like,
yeah,
um, "Yeah, that's not really how that works." So the
Yeah.
big concern right now is not, and for what I say is adopting it. So I've been actively adopting AI to make me be able to do 3 jobs at once more efficiently than before. Instead of
Yeah.
saying let's not use it, I'm trying to get my staff to use it more actually, so we can be more efficient. However, there is concern from other attorneys in terms of, well, will that alleviate the need for attorneys altogether? I don't think so. Mostly because an AI software can't go to court for you
Yeah.
or things like that.
Litigation.
Yeah, but the thing is just staying ahead of the curve or staying at least right at the tip of the wave, in terms of not just being left in the shadows. So I see that the biggest change that's happening right now, because even insurance companies are using AI to evaluate claims. How much is
Hmm.
this person's case worth? What is their injury worth? How well ranked is this attorney? Do we need to worry about him? Is he going to really litigate it? They're using these models to help generate offers and things like that. Whereas before it was just some adjuster reading some notes and trying to come up with a number and things like that. So it's getting a lot. Things are changing very fast in that regard.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that where it could create more challenges in the future for lawyers would be the lawyers that maybe are um, not ever involved in litigation and things like that. You know, maybe estate law, some of those areas. But it's hard for me to envision a day where AI is able to replace the litigation process of going to court. But
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe so. The thing in talking with a lot of lawyers on the show, I think the number one component of AI that scares them from a consumer practice standpoint is some of the hallucination and certain precedences that or precedents that are even referenced by people that are entire AI hallucinations. And in lawyers, in some cases, there's a big lawsuit that, or a big case that I think went all the way up to Supreme Court or a high court this year about a case that was decided based on a false precedent that was likely AI hallucination has been the conclusion, you know. So
I heard about
I
that.
think that
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's the scary part for many lawyers that I talk to, at least. And I think we're going to probably find more and more of that type of thing get unraveled over the coming years that we don't even know exist yet. Uh, of hallucinations that were used in improper manner. But you know, it's not meant to shortcut everything. You know, that's tried and true, and you can guarantee that will come to light. So, well, I know that you've just been extremely successful over there. Congrats to you, Neil.
Thank you.
I am curious. You know, obviously you're a good lawyer, but based on your firm's quick scalability, you're obviously a good business owner and leader as well. Are there any books or podcasts that you would recommend to other business leaders?
In the legal space, there is one book that's very famous called Traction. It's written by another lawyer or a set of lawyers, or maybe just one, I can't recall, where it really discusses how, I believe the guy was out of Michigan and he was a solo as well. And he just put together this rule book for this is how you get cases, this is how you evaluate them. It was almost like how to build a giant personal injury practice for dummies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called Traction. I do forget the name of the author, but I would say that's a really good one. In terms of outside of that for podcasts, to be honest, the podcasts I use are more the self-help ones, because I don't look at myself. And the funny thing is, when I meet people out in the street or when I'm traveling, I travel a lot. People say, you don't seem like they don't believe I'm a lawyer. I might look like one for a second
Yeah.
because I put the suit on, but people never believe I'm a lawyer. They're like, you don't seem like a lawyer. And you know what I tell them? I said, to be honest, I hate lawyers as well. Like, I don't like talking to lawyers. You just never know what weirdo you're going to get. And so what I found is that it's more about growing personally. So to answer your question, I listen to like a lot of self-help podcasts or YouTube videos like Wayne Dyer or Joe Dispenza to
Yeah.
more center myself, because I don't know if law itself was ever my calling. I went to law school more because I thought of myself, I wanted to be back in business, and I ended up practicing afterwards. And it sounds weird to say this, but I did very good in law school, but I was never the type of person to keep up to date with Supreme Court rulings or care about jurisprudence. It was more
Hmm.
about, hey, how do I make a business and how do I make it successful? And oh, well, by the way, it happens to be the legal business.
Yeah.
So I would say it's what I listen to are things that make me better as a person, not so much as a lawyer, but because that translates into my ability to talk to people and get them to trust me over some big billboard guy with $1 billion of revenue.
Love that. Love that. Out of curiosity, what was your undergrad degree in, Neil?
So I did my undergrad degree in international business. So it was the first program of its kind in Canada. So it's called the Bachelor of International Business, and they only let like a very small number of students in, but it's a fantastic program because you study international business uh, classes, but as part of the program, you have to select a language, and then in your third year of studies, you have to go abroad to a university, a partner school in another country that speaks that language. So you have to be proficient in a language, new language by your third year, and you spend a year abroad in your third year at a partner university, and then you come back. And that was just like that was a life changing 4 years for me. Just it changed my life. To this day, like I still keep in touch with all my friends, even in Mexico and here or in Canada. And I even started an endowment with my old undergrad school just because of I wanted to give back for how impactful that study abroad was. But then after that, I did my MBA in Toronto, and then finally my law degree down here.
Wow. A lot of school. Congratulations. Yeah, that's super neat. I was curious. I figured it was something in the realm of business. Uh, Very cool. Well, Neil, where can our listeners and viewers find more about your firm online?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So our main website is accidentprosllp.com. But recently with our new marketing campaign, we've simplified things. So if you go to gotcrash.com, you'll find our website. So that's part of our new advertising campaign, which is Got Crash. So that's how you'll find us. So you can go to gotcrash.com and it'll pipe you through to our website. We're in all throughout California. We take cases across the state, and we're happy to help.
Very cool. That's that's awesome. Appreciate you being on the show, Neil. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. Thanks for being here. And you have a great story. You've built a very successful firm. I'm sure you'll continue to do great things. Thanks again for being on the show. We appreciate it, Neil.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and really want to thank you personally for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.